got some for us?
Yes. Joe Flaherty writes, "Hey, love this show. I was wondering, with the success of The Revenant, do you think we'll see more filmmakers using natural light?"
I don't think so, just because it's such a pain in the ass. Because they had to basically wait around a lot of the time till either the weather or the light was perfect for the scene that they wanted to do. So a lot of times they said they had to wait either weeks or months or days or hours just sitting around. So I think only certain filmmakers can get away with something like that, and you have to have kind of a small cast, small crew. But I think people will do it in the future, but it's going to be very rare.
Yeah, you really need everyone committed. And, like, he's a very specific filmmaker. Like, he can pull something like that off. I don't know if many other people can. I mean, maybe that opens the door to just the question of using practical lighting instead. That seems like a more reasonable thing, focusing on just using practical instead of everything else.
I think you're going to see a lot of filmmakers use natural light for about a week, and then they're going to be like, screw this, get the lights, just don't tell anybody. Like, it just sounds like too harrowing of a journey for people to want to go on.
And one interesting fact is they actually did use a couple lights in the campfire scenes.
Oh, my.
But everything else was natural light.
Doesn't matter, my world.
Take the Oscar nominations away.
Okay. All right, what's next?
Corey writes, "Who decides which part of a movie gets scored, or like in Star Wars, which characters get their own themes?" Thanks.
I mean, that's something between the director and the composer. I mean, the director tells the composer, okay, we need a theme for this person. I mean, not every movie has themes for every character. It's just certain ones.
I think it just depends on the scene, too. Like, if the scene that a specific character is in, has a big fight in, is introduced in, that will call for a specific theme to highlight that moment to make it feel different than all the other beats in the movie.
It's very rare that a composer gets to see, like, the entire movie without the director hovering over them saying, I want this and this and this. So it's, like, I don't think a composer's ever come to a director and been like, hey, here's the stuff you wanted. I also wrote a theme for this person and this person and this person, just in case you want it. Like, it's usually the director making those calls and asking the composer what to do.
Yeah, not every movie has every character. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm sure, like, Ride Along 2, they're not like, oh, here's Kevin Hart's theme and here's Ice Cube's. You know what I mean? Like, it's certain movies, like a Star Wars.
I kind of want to hear what Kevin Hart's theme would sound like now.
All right, what's next?
La 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 la.
Carlos Gonzalez writes, "Why do some actors appear on IMDb as uncredited? Do they want to distance themselves from certain projects?"
I don't think so. Usually it's a small role or something that, like, maybe they kind of, like Edward Norton, I think he's uncredited for Kingdom of Heaven, that Ridley Scott movie, and he plays, and he's like covered up, so you don't actually see him. I don't know. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
I guess it's a case-by-case basis, but I'm just assuming that it would be, you know, a small role that didn't warrant a title card or anything like that, and it's probably personal preference.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, that movie sucks, I can't believe I did it. I think it's just sometimes it's a small role, and you just don't feel like you need to be credited for it. I don't really trust IMDb that much.
Or maybe it's a surprise. Maybe it's something they wanted to be like, oh, I don't want to be credited. So like when I show up, everyone will be like, oh my God. Yeah. Like I don't know. I'm not sure, but was Channing Tatum credited for This Is the End?
I am not sure. Was Tom Cruise credited for Len or Les Grossman or whoever that was?
I think he was credited for that, yeah.
Credited for Les Grossman. Yeah. But I mean, Channing Tatum was kind of like at least for me, was a surprise when he showed up. Another question?
Louisville writes, "What's worse, clearly fake practical effects or clearly fake CG effects?"
Oh, that's tough.
I'll 110% go for CG, but it might be because that I edited those videos of the 3 to 5 minute recaps of all the original episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And just when you're doing a recap video and you're focusing so hard on specific frames and all you see is like a fake character in a real background or vice versa, it is just so insanely distracting and upsetting. It absolutely drove me insane. Now every single time I see bad CG since then, it's kind of been getting under my skin more than it ever has.
Mark?
Yeah, I'd much rather watch bad practical effects. I hate watching bad effects in movies in general. Like, it's taken me years to get over the fact that I'm gonna just have to swallow it sometimes in movies. But bad bad CGI, it's like I want to leave the theater. Bad practical effects, at least you can have fun and laugh. It's like, you know, it looks like Muppets, or it's like, oh, I can see the string moving the spaceship around. Like, it's kind of fun. It's not The Room, but it's kind of fun to, you know, laugh at stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll go with bad CG just because. With the practical, because I've seen older movies with bad practical effects, and it doesn't bother me as much as bad CG. Because with CG, I guess the technology keeps getting better and better. And
I think bad practical effects. I think practical effects in general have more longevity than CG too.
Yeah.
It's like as the technology changes with CG, you're going to notice it more and more, and it's going to take away from the movie. Whereas movies that came out, 20 however many years ago, I can watch them today, and even though it's like maybe crappy practical effects, something still feels the same.
Yeah, bad practical effects too. It's like I still give them credit for the effort for whatever reason, more so than I do bad CG. Bad CG just feels sloppy to me, whereas bad practical effects, I'm more forgiving. I'm like, they didn't have the budget, or hey, you tried.
As long as I don't see gaffer tape holding together some of the practical effects, I'm okay. All right, what's next?
Jake Silva writes, would you rather have a great-looking movie or a movie with great performances?
Great performances, 100%. I don't even have to think about that, because there have been great movies. Like, what was that movie? That Ridley Scott movie, Exodus. Gods and King, or whatever the hell that the subtitle. Gorgeous looking movie. And the performances weren't that bad, but it was so boring. So I'd rather see like something shot on an iPhone or Android phone with someone with fantastic performances.
I mean, just think of that movie Tangerine that just came out. I actually think that looks great for a movie shot on an iPhone too. Actually, for any movie, I shouldn't even say that, but whole movie was shot on an iPhone, and I think part of the reason that is become such a special movie of 2015 is because the lead performances in that are so incredible. And like another recent example that popped in my head, not necessarily in terms of the look of the movie, but Joy wasn't a great movie, but it's got this one epic performance in the center of it, and that's kind of what makes it work.
I get really excited to go see blockbusters. Like I see a trailer and I'm like, I can't wait to see that movie. But if it's bad, I find myself leaving and being more pissed off that there wasn't a good story than vice versa. Like it's very rare I'm going to leave a movie and have gotten a great story and been like, man, I just wish it looked better. Like it just doesn't sound like it's a thought I'd have that often, And I get that there's other production values that you just can't always have when you're telling a smaller story or you have a limited budget. But I'd much rather have a great story.
Yeah, because bad acting for me takes me out of the movie really quickly. Look, if it's just cinematography where it's just like static camera. I mean, look at something like Kevin Smith's Clerks, right? It's not like it's shot masterfully. They just lock off the camera, medium shots, wide shots. But I feel like with his dialogue and the performances of the actors in it, like it's engaging, where it's like you can have the most beautiful shots, but as soon as an actor isn't delivering, you're just like, I'm out of there.
I can't think of a single example of the opposite.
Yeah, it's hard to think. Like I look at a movie, it's like a very condensed version of a relationship. Like the beginning, the first date, you look beautiful, fine, let's give this thing a shot. And then as it goes on and on, it's like there's just nothing behind those eyes. There's nothing behind that face. This is a bad human being that happens to be in a very beautiful package.
It's actually not a bad analogy.
Seems like you have a lot of experience with that type of stuff.
I have a lot of experience with bad movies and bad dates.
All right, what's next?
Rashad writes, which movie genre do you think is more difficult to make successfully, comedy or horror?
Because I'm not a horror fan, I would have to say comedy. Just because, especially because everyone's comedic tastes are different, and so something that you make you may think is funny is not funny to someone else. Where I think horror, you can pinpoint more of what will scare people versus comedy. Comedy's all over the place.
That's tough for me because I've only made horror. I think I made one comedy short in film school, but I produced a horror film, and it's not easy. It's not easy making all the effects look right. It's not easy. Like something on paper can read really well where you're like, that's going to look sick. It's going to freak people out. And then all of a sudden you're on set and the blood's not pumping the right way, or a practical effect doesn't look right. Or then maybe it does look great on set. And then all of a sudden you get to post and it still does not look right with color correction that just ruined the color of the blood or something in that respect. But as someone who has only had experience making horror movies, I go for horror.
I will break the tie and say I think comedy's just a little bit tougher to do. And I'll tell you why. Because you could put on a horror movie, and it could end up being a bad horror movie, but you can at least with a horror film have not that tough of a time building up suspense for 30 or 45 minutes. And then usually a bad horror movie, you get the reveal of what's going on, and it just isn't that scary, and it doesn't pay off. But a comedy can start out bad and just get worse and worse and worse. Humor is subjective, but when you do it it right. Either one of these genres, if you do it right, it really pays off and you want to go back and see it again and again. I just think comedy, getting laughs to really hit is a little bit tougher, and the tightrope you have to walk is a little bit higher than with horror.
All right, what's next?
Alexander Burton writes, Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones in The Theory of Everything, or Eddie Redmayne and Alicia Vikander in The Danish Girl.
I didn't see The Danish Girl yet, so I can't say. Mark, did you see The Danish Girl?
Yeah. It's God. Damn, that's a tough question. I'm going to have to give the tiebreaker to Theory of Everything, simply because the way that you see that relationship progress through the years was just a little more compelling to me, but it's taking nothing away from what Eddie Redmayne did in The Danish Girl, and Alicia Vikander's performance too. Like, she was so good in that movie. If you didn't have Felicity Jones being as great as she was in Theory of Everything, it would have been Danish Girl, but I'm giving there's a lot of tough questions today, Dennis. This might be the hardest one. I'm going Theory of Everything.
Perry?
I'm really high on Alicia Vikander right now, so I want to pick her. But The Danish Girl as a whole, I think, was way, way lower than The Theory of Everything. Like, the Danish Girl, I walked out not liking it to the point that I was almost a little upset. I think it should have been her story, and I think they made Lily come across as a little selfish because they weren't respecting how her decision would change their relationship. And there's this one line where Alicia Vikander is like, I just want to hug my husband, and it broke my heart. That should have kind of rippled out through the entire movie, and it didn't.
I will have to say Eddie Redmayne is a lucky dude. He gets to be in a movie with Felicity Jones and Alicia Vikander.
Yeah, it's not a bad life.
Not a bad life. Last one.
Okay, Flex writes, Ryan Reynolds dressed as Deadpool at the Deadpool movie premiere doing interviews. Thoughts?
I think it's a great idea. I think he should do it. Not only, I think on Heroes, I think Schnepp and John and Robert Meyer Burnett were like asking Ryan Reynolds to come onto their show. I think he should come on to Heroes and also do the red carpet in costume.
The thought of him doing all of those interviews in costume is a little upsetting. I just remember when Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum did it for 21 Jump Street. And if you look at the succession of interviews that day, they just got more and more tired and uncomfortable and unhappy as it went along. But I certainly see some sort of Deadpool stunt going on at that premiere. The promotional campaign is heading right in that direction.
Yeah, it's not going to be a normal premiere. Something is going to go wacky. Something's going to be zany. Something's going to be madcap. Hijinks will ensue the Deadpool premiere. I'm not sure it's going to be that, but if I had to put money on something, it would be Ryan Reynolds showing up in costume.
Hey guys, if you like this clip, click here to watch the entire episode. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because it'll help you stay up to date with all the stuff we've got going on here at Collider.